to live stream number 34. This is actually my second take because the first time around I made the mistake of having yesterday's title in the stream. And so on YouTube, I am still seeing that it thinks my last stream is live under the wrong title. So I'm just going to continuously refresh. Oh, here we go. Beautiful. So we're live. Welcome to live stream number 34, streaming to you live out of the best city in the world, Austin, Texas. And the title of today's program is Notifications Are Unprofessional, and it's all about the quadrant. So I am going to flesh that out for you here as we go. By the way, I'm working on my mic technique today. I appreciate that feedback from Ken, and I am going to work on improving my technique. So, got my phone pulled up here, and should be able to see any questions and comments that come into the program. So without any further ado, let me jump into the content for today. So this was a question that I got. This was a question that I got from somebody who was getting ready for a Magento 2 lead developer role, technical interview. And, they asked, like, what are some questions I might encounter kind of a thing. And so I went ahead and crowdsourced that question to try and get some good feedback. And I got some good feedback. So I'm going to review these items here in the program. And, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So let's just go ahead and do it then, man. Okay, Steve Perry. Now, obviously, anytime you ask anything on Twitter, you're going to get a healthy dose of sarcastic replies. That is par for the course. If an M2 site crashes but has no visitors, does it make a sound? Very good. Very good. Well done. Well done. Well done. Okay, next up, Justin Bosch. I'd ask, why do you believe Magento 2 is the right move versus Shopify? Their response and true understanding of the platform should be shown in this answer. This is an interesting approach, and it's funny, as somebody who has been very Magento-centric and is starting to dip my toe into the Shopify waters, this is something that I think is very important to understand. I mean, in this day and age, we do sort of all have to understand the various platforms and what their strengths and weaknesses are and how we might recommend solutions to be architected. That said, I'm not 100% sure. It depends on the type of job you're interviewing for. And I don't know exactly what this particular case, what job they're interviewing for. There's still agencies that do primarily Magento dev work. And if you're a lead developer that does Magento dev work, you sort of don't need to know this. If you're a solutions architect, you absolutely got to know this. But that was an interesting approach. Of course, Chris chiming in here. What is an accurate timeline for a build? The snark on these Twitter replies is just unbelievable. David Lambauer, is it okay to send an email from a controller? The only correct answer is it depends. I have sent my fair share of emails from a controller. I will have you know. I know a little bit about that. Daniel Rafik, is Shopify what Magento should have been? Again with the Shopify jokes, people. For crying out loud. Question from Nathan here. Who's leading the interview? That's a great question. I don't actually know the answer, but this is an important question. Of course, if you are somebody that's prepping for an interview, are you talking to a tech lead of an agency? Are you talking to an e-com director at a merchant? Who are you talking to? So that's obviously going to be important. For my purposes, I'm sort of imagining it's a tech director at an agency for this particular use case. Now we're getting some real actual quality responses from some individuals that wanted to actually contribute to the discussion, starting with Irfan Imani, who, by the way, is a super athlete. Please describe Magento 2's application bootstrap procedure. That's great. And as an example of someone that is not currently a Magento 2 developer, I would have no idea how to answer that. But yeah, understanding this under the hood definitely shows that you've put in some reps in under the hood. So that's an interesting one. Clarification here, on a high level, if someone at least mentions the front controller and routers, that's good. Yeah. I mean, on M1, I've definitely gotten my hands dirty in that system, digging in there, troubleshooting things. Lars Rotig, different between production and dev mode. Difference between production and dev mode. Plugins load or okay, so I'm a little bit having trouble reading this. Plugins load order routes and ACL module load. AOP, aspect-oriented programming, and DI over DI.xml, hard and soft dependency from your module. Sure, makes sense. Another great one from Irfan. What are some good examples? By the way, Irfan was a guest on Mage Talk. If you have not caught that episode, you need to catch it. You can simply Google Mage Talk Irfan, and it should come right up. Bam! What did I tell you? You got to check that episode out because it was a goodie, an oldie but a goodie. Okay. This kind of cracked me up. Reply to a tweet with a link to a contact form. Okay. All right. I'll jump right on that. I'm going to jump right on that contact form. Okay. So that about covers it. So thanks everybody for chiming in. I think there's some good nuggets in here. If you are somebody prepping for an interview, there are some good nougats in there. So there you have it. All right, next up in the program, note that I still have not gotten to the items that are in the title of the episode. So if you are watching along the full episode, then you might have been clickbaited. Although really what I'm trying to do more now is after I finish the episode, posting a tweet and a LinkedIn post with time-coded references to each topic so you can fast forward directly to whatever you're interested in. Okay? All right. So next up, I'm considering switching up the order, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stick to the original order in my doc here for consistency purposes. And I just have 2 more topics before I get to the notifications or unprofessional topic. All right. So bear with me. Okay. Next up. I got to pull up the linkage here. I'm much more on top of my topical links for today's episode than I was yesterday. If you were following along yesterday, you know that was pretty much an utter crapshoot. All right, so I was listening to Gary Vee podcast, as I do every day. It's my inspiration. And I do not remember exactly which episode this was, so I apologize. But he talked about something that kind of blew my mind a little bit. He was talking about the topic is not having privacy a good thing? And we're going to get to this. Bear with me. I'm going to get to this here through a circuitous route. Did I use that correctly? That was pretty good. A circuitous route. So he was talking about sort of being authentic. So many of us have, secrets, things we're ashamed of. So he was talking about putting all your most vulnerable things just out there, just putting everything out there, right? And Gary Vee is a guy who sort of lives his life virtually pretty much entirely in public. And he was, he's talking about how it's a good thing to just not have any secrets. And he said at one point, he goes, I have 25 people in my inbox all the time, right? So he has a huge team. I'm sure he has people managing his email, his various social media DMs, everything, right? Like he essentially has no privacy from that perspective. Now he's talked about how his personal life is private. You know, they don't even do social media when it comes to his wife and his kids, that kind of a thing. But as far as, you know, his work life, all of that goes, he essentially has no privacy, right? And I was thinking about it from, you know, privacy is a big deal these days. We talk a lot about the importance of privacy, and I think privacy is super important. Like, excuse me, but at the same time, I thought this was a really interesting perspective that basically having, you know, and I think about this, to be completely honest. Like sometimes I'll send a DM or whatever to my friends about random topics, and I think to myself like, ooh, like that might be politically incorrect, and if you know, I wouldn't want that to be made public, that kind of a thing. And it does seem like, it does feel like there is there would be a freedom to sort of not having anything, you know, private, anything secret, in the sense that whether it's, you know, having assistants that have access to all your communications or whatever the case may be, it was just an interesting tweak on the way I normally think about privacy. And I'm not saying I think that like not having privacy is a good thing. I mean, that's why I'm framing this as, you know, maybe not having privacy is a good thing. It's just a thought experiment, if you will. So yeah, so that's basically all I wanted to say about that. Okay. Next up in the program. So this is, let me pull this up real quick. Okay. So this is, probably having a hard time seeing this, but this is literally a screenshot of a formula which I keep in Sublime, which I then paste into Airtable for this is essentially my assignment logic for my Airtable for my content team, video editors, writers, assistants, social media posting, all that kind of stuff. And this is a business idea, free business idea there for you, which is to, I think that, like, I was kind of surprised that Integromat doesn't really have this. I think Zapier kind of has it. Integromat doesn't really have it, which is like, I basically want, so this formula gets pasted into Airtable as, this probably looks to you like a Excel or Google Sheets if conditional formula, which is basically the same things what Airtable supports. And so I paste this in, and if I have to change it, I go in and I change it, and then I paste it in. So I think it'd be awesome if we could just turn this into a UI, which was, you know, you've seen these types of things, a conditional UI where you can compose ifs and you can compose ands and ors and different conditionals and things like that. I was messing around with Data Studio yesterday, and Data Studio has an interface for this type of thing. So I think there might be a little bit of a niche for literally a product, SaaS, that just lets you compose conditionals like this, because that would integrate with Integromat and other things, because I would personally love to use that so that I could not have this crazy formula that I got to deal with, and that it would be easy to modify, and I could do it easily on my mobile and things like that. So that's a little idea as I'm getting into the no code world, the Zapier, the Integromat, Airtable, all this kind of stuff. I'm seeing gaps, you know, little product gaps. And I think that there might be something there. Could be pretty simple little hackathon project, to be honest. And I think there'd be some value there. So there you have it. Product idea. Okay, next up in the program. This whole next up in the program thing is like started as a silly, ironic phrase, and then it's one of those things you say something ironically and then you start saying it unironically. All right, next up in the program. Controversial opinion. As a developer, having notifications on while you work for anything, Slack, social media, email, etc., is unprofessional. So I was thinking about this yesterday, and I've talked about this before. I've talked about, how I think it's important to turn off notifications while you're working. And I'm saying specifically as a developer, more broadly, this applies to deep work. So if you are in a role which requires focused, concentrated work, I think this applies. Now, if you're a manager where your primary function is coordinating between people and things like that, you can talk about maker versus manager schedules. If you're a manager, this does not apply. But if you are in a role where focused work is required, I think this is true. And it's very well established that interruptions. I mean, we've seen the stats and the tweets that when you get interrupted as a developer, it takes you an insanely long time to get back into the zone. Whether you call it the zone, whether you call it a flow state, whether you call it being concentrated, whatever the case may be, as a developer, you sort of have to, when you're working on a problem, you're sort of building a mental model of all the different things you're interacting with within a code base and within a business problem domain. And it's this sort of fragile balance in your head. And, if you get interrupted and tapped on the shoulder and asked a question, then it's going to take you a long time to get back into that focused state. So I think that as a developer, whether you're going into the zone for 2 hours at a time, 3 hours at a time, maybe even an hour, but probably it's got to be more than that, probably 2 hours, 3, 4 hours, you really do have to go into the zone. And it's very common. I don't know how common it is. I mean, this is how I've worked personally for a while, but I think it's very common to have notifications on, and it's like, well, I got to be on Slack because that's where the team is. But my thing is, like, your most important work as a developer is to do the development work. Now, do you have to help other teammates? Yes. But to the extent that your primary function is helping other teammates, that's putting you more in the manager category than the developer category, I think. And so maybe my thinking is a little rigid here, but this is just my take on it. So got some comments rolling in already. Max Bucknell. Software development is an interesting profession. We've disrupted so many things and then realized that certain things we viewed as old corporate quagmires were rooted in good practice. But fundamentally, developers should aim to be the platonic ideal of employment. Okay, that's an interesting take, which is to say, judged on outputs, as any job should be, but any job isn't. Right. Whether having notifications enabled can be empirically shown to negatively affect work of everyone is up for debate, I think. So I love what Max is saying about being judged on outputs, and I completely agree. And this is almost the root of why I think it's important to disable notifications, because as developers, we should not be judged on they respond quickly to Slack messages or they're always available. Yes, responsiveness is important, but responsiveness within a few hours is very different from responsiveness within a few minutes. And I completely agree, we should be judged on outputs. How much work are you actually pushing? How much work are you actually getting done? And as Max rightly points out, this is sort of the platonic ideal of what any job should be, how any job should be judged, and they never are in practice. There's always some component, there's a component of politics or do I like this person or whatever. Now the second part, I have to say, I completely disagree with. Whether having notifications enabled can be empirically shown to negatively affect work of everyone is up for debate. I disagree. I think, and I don't have the stats handy here, but I've just seen this so many times that getting into a flow state, getting into a focus state, getting pulled out of it, whether it's a notification, anything you have to pay attention to. If it's a notification, if it's a tap on the shoulder, is going to pull you out of that state, and it's going to take you a non-trivial amount of time to get pulled back into that state. So I do agree. I definitely agree with this. I do not think it's up for debate that having notifications enabled negatively affects your work. I think I think that's the science is clear on that. I hate it when people say that. Okay, comment from Devron. By the way, sweet avatar. Am I right? Am I right? Depends on the environment, in my opinion. If you've got a lot of developers working remotely together, then you need to be able to help each other. The longer I do software development, the more I agree with Uncle Bob's view on the zone. This is interesting, and this is a very interesting reference because Uncle Bob Martin is sort of widely revered within the development community. Like, it's almost like if I'm going to disagree with him right now, that's like somebody you don't want to disagree with as a general rule, but we'll see. I might just go there. And then the reference tweet from Uncle Bob is, I consider the zone, quote, the zone to be an extreme narrowing of focus. I agree there. And therefore harmful over extended periods. Completely disagree with that. I don't think it's harmful at all. Usually I want a kind of wide angle focus, intense, but not exclusionary. This is something an IFR pilot understands. So I can't help but feel that, like, he's on like another level that I'm not understanding, like he's on like a higher Yoda level of understanding here, and which is probably the case. It's probably the case he's right and I'm wrong, but I'm just going to say that I disagree. I don't understand the IFR pilot reference. Yeah, I mean, if you can have an intense focus that's not exclusionary, then that's great. Intense focus is the goal. I'm not sure I've ever personally experienced this, what he's described as a wide angle focus. So it's possible I just don't get it, but I'm gonna just foolishly go on record saying I disagree with that. Now, going back to Devron's comment, if you've got a lot of developers working remotely together, then you need to be available to help each other. So I completely agree, but I think the nature of the help should be asynchronous within a, let's call it a 2 to 3 hour window. So if you've got 10 developers, all of those developers should go into the zone for extended periods of time. Let's just say 3 hours, just to pick a specific number. Could be 2 to 3, could be an hour and a half. Let's just say 3 hours in order to use a specific number. So the way that in my vision of the world, each of those 10 developers should be going into the zone, no notifications for 3 hour periods. When they come out of the zone is when they should come up for air, respond to things, respond to questions, help each other. Now, first of all, for starters, I think that if you're working remotely as a developer, you got to be senior. If you're a junior developer, you need a lot of hand-holding. I don't know that can even work. I haven't seen a lot of it myself personally. So let's assume, first off, that you're talking about 10 developers that are senior developers working together remotely. Yes, you definitely should help each other. That adds a huge amount of value to the team as a whole. But I think the nature of the help should be fundamentally asynchronous as opposed to synchronous. If you are a developer who, now again, if you've got 10 developers going to the zone for 3 hours at a time, the chance that at any given time somebody might be available to answer a question is probably decent, right? But if you can't, let's say that as an individual developer, you have to wait an hour or 2 hours to get a response from somebody on the team to help you out. As a senior developer, if you can't use that time productively in some way by trying to figure out on your own, that's sort of a red flag, right? If you're a junior developer, I get it. You're going to be lost for hours at a time, right? But if you're a senior developer, you should be able to make productive use of that hour or 2 hour by investigating things yourself. And then at the 2 hour mark, somebody comes up for air and helps you move things along faster. That's awesome. I'm all about that. So those are my thoughts on the topic. Hopefully we will get more. I have a sense that we're going to get more responses to this particular controversial opinion, and we will be reporting back on. We will be reporting back on this throughout the day. Actually, no, report back on it tomorrow. All right. Next up in the program, the Gartner Magic Quadrant. So I have been ranting about different Magento things lately. Been talking about the importance of API coverage, and the was having a discussion with some tweeps about this, and one buddy of mine, really made, like I was saying, like, man, API coverage is the most important priority by far. Like, there should be a laser focus on getting that done like yesterday. And then a buddy of mine sort of very clearly, I don't have the tweet handy, but sort of very clearly expressed, like, dude, it is all about the Gartner Magic Quadrant. So Gartner Magic Quadrant, if you haven't seen this by now and you've been in the Magento community, I don't know where you have been living, but it seems like this is up on slide decks. It talks all the time. They position technology players within a specific market. So they position people in these 4 areas of the quadrant. And let me just see if I can pull this up. Magic Quadrant Magento. See if we can quickly. Actually, I can probably do an image search on this. Here we go. Magic Quadrant for digital commerce. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. This is a better image. This is a better image here. Open image in new tab. This is a low resolution image, so this is actually a bad image. Let me see if I can get the higher resolution image. Bear with me here. And it's a low resolution image there too. What does it take to get a high resolution image, man? What is the deal? Where are these suckers, man? Why is there no high resolution version of this? There we go. That looks better. There we go. Now this is, what in the world is this? Where's Magento? Magento Commerce, Challengers. Okay. Is this old? This might be old because I thought that this is from 2016. So anybody watching this is going to hate the fact that I'm pulling something up where Magento is not in the leaders. I believe they're in the leaders category now. And not the challengers. Anyway, the point is that my buddy sort of expressed really clearly, like, the Magic Quadrant is this is the entire focus of, and this is not based on any inside information, private information I've gotten from anybody. This is just based on, public speculation. It's kind of obvious. It's kind of common sense. It's very much common sense. But just to see this sort of really clearly, like, whenever we talk about, the Magento should focus on this, Magento should focus on that, the community needs this, the community needs that. As far as the commercial arm goes, now you've got the Open Source Association, which of course has its own direction, its own leadership, its own independence, which is sweet. As far as the commercial arm goes, this is the North Star. This is what it's all about. Right. So when I say, oh, Magento should really focus on API coverage, if that doesn't factor in heavily to the Magic Quadrant, and I don't know too much about how it actually works, like Gartner has, analysts that analyze stuff and figure stuff out. But if that doesn't factor into this, it's not going to matter to the leadership. And again, this is not based on any private information I have from anybody. This is just all based on public speculation. This is the game. The Magic Quadrant is the game. It's in my opinion, what the leadership on the Magento side, the Adobe Commerce side, care about. And so, yeah, that's pretty much the point I wanted to make. Whenever we are debating what should be prioritized, what should not be prioritized, we need to keep in mind that this is really the only thing that matters at all. Now, that's a bit of an overstatement, of course. I mean, Magento Adobe, they care about their customers and partners, of course, goes without saying. I'm just saying that this is probably by far the biggest driver of priorities. And so maybe what that means is if we are going to recommend something or push for something as a community, we should frame it within the context of how it will benefit the position on the quadrant. I don't know. I don't really understand too much about this thing, but anyways, yeah, that's what I wanted to say. So my whole thing about prioritizing API coverage heavily, I'm going to myself, and they are prioritizing it, but like to really do it in the way that like I personally feel it should be done, like that's not going to happen. Like I would venture to guess that Magic Quadrant doesn't care too much about API coverage, but I could be wrong. All right, next up in the program. So, saw this tweet from Pizza Emoji Mark William Lewis, my buddy Mark. I love ecomscan. We're paying for an agency license, so all our clients can be covered by it. It's been invaluable in securing both M1 and M2 sites, particularly for extension vulnerabilities. And he's referencing a tweet from... So the Twitter handle is ecomscan. The name is Sanguine Security Labs, which is e-commerce fraud protection smart CCTV. I don't know what CCTV means. It sounds like closed caption TV, which I know that's not it. Researching forum jackers, payment skimmers, miners, and MageCart. And now, so this is the latest venture from, I believe, from Willem de Groot, who, just trying to pull this up here. There's a link to the thing here. Who is obviously of fame in the Magento community, who I believe was the founder of Byte Hosting, either the founder or he used to work there, and of course created, what's it called, the scanner, MageScan. I'm sorry. Point is, Willem is a freaking beast when it comes to all things security, detecting hacks within the Magento community. I mean, the number of things. I mean, he's an absolute genius in this category. And no, it's not MageScan. And so anyway, like, I don't know exactly how long this has existed. Obviously, Willem has done a ton of things in this space in various different forms. And what was the scanning thing called? MageScan, Willem de Groot. I remember that the scanning thing he created was, this is so annoying that I can't remember what this is called. Magento Scan. Shows you how disconnected I have become here. Anyway, but his scanning thing was pretty much free, I remember. And I remember feeling like, man, I'd love to see him monetize that because it's so valuable, and that'll enable him to do more of what he does best, helping the Magento community essentially secure their sites. And so it looks to me like Sanguine is absolutely crushing it, which is so good to see. I mean, the amount of value that Willem contributes to the community is almost like immeasurable. And so much of that he did, sort of for free in a way for a while. And I'm just really glad to see that he's monetizing it really effectively here. I should do a full-on review of his actual site at some point, because I like doing those site reviews. So, hack the Magento store, resolve it within 2 hours. How does ecomscan work? Website looks great, by the way. So, ecomscan is fed 24/7 with threat intelligence from multiple sources. Learn why ecomscan is usually weeks ahead in detecting the latest attack. And like Willem, this is the thing, is like Willem is always the first one to find all this stuff. You know, like the amount of stuff he contributed to the what's it called, the contribution, the Magento the bug bounty program is massive, and again, it seems like it's being monetized really, really well. So here's how it all works. I mean, it just looks awesome. So it looks like he's starting to pick up some great clients. Again, going back to the original tweet, Mark has got an agency license, and hopefully a lot of other people are doing that. And so, so that's pretty much it. So I should do a more thorough review of that at some point, but obviously some of the security stuff is a little over my head, but yeah, if you are doing it, you should definitely, if you build Magento sites, if you're on a Magento site, you should probably be using this. You should probably be using this. So that is it. That's all I have for today, and I want to thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you have yourself a fantastic Tuesday,